In this video, I will cover using explode function in Microsoft Fabric notebooks to flatten arrays. This function is a must to have in your data engineering toolbox when dealing with more hierarchical data. So stay tuned. Welcome to the video. My name is Aleksi and on this channel I cover Microsoft Fabric and Azure related topics. In this video we're continuing our journey with Microsoft Fabric data engineering, and today we're covering using explode function in Microsoft Fabric notebooks. This video will explain the basics of how to use this function, which is going to be very useful when we move into more advanced topics with notebooks, and cover how to handle and process semi-structured data like JSON files. Like always, all the material related to this video can be found by clicking the link in the description. But now, let's go to Fabric. Here I have a blank notebook that we're going to use in this demo/tutorial to demonstrate how to use the explode function. Let's add our first code cell. With this code here, we will generate a new data frame called df1 that has 3 rows of data and 2 columns. We have the ID column and then we have the values column. And our values column is actually an array. Then we're also creating this kind of a temporary view out of that data frame 1 called df1 view, so we can use Spark SQL cells to query this data. Let's run our first cell here in order us to create that view. And now we have run that cell and also started a new session for this notebook. Next, let's add a piece of code that will select everything out from that view that we just created. And here we can see our data. So basically we have that ID column, then we have these value columns that has arrays in that column. So we have this bit more complex data type here than usually we have in traditional databases. Next, I will show to you how you can use explode function to flatten out this array. So let's do that. And here is the code that we're going to use. So we have the explode function here. So what we are doing here, we're selecting the ID column and then we are exploding this values array from that view that we have there. Let's run this and let's see what happens. And now we can see that now we have actually more rows than we had in that original dataset there. And let's see what happened there. We can see that we repeated each ID the amount of objects we had in each array. For example, with ID 1, we had 3 numbers in our array. And then in this result dataset where we use that explode function, we have ID 1 3 times here. So we have 3 rows for that. And we can see that on each row, we have one of those array values that we had there. So basically the explode function takes each value that we have in the array and adds them to a separate row. But this also multiplies the other columns that we have in the data. This means that we could have a lot of duplicate data in our table that is not optimal in many cases. But we will come back to this in a later episode. Next, we could do a bit more complex example using this explode function. But before we do that, I would like to know that I spent a ton of my free time creating these videos for you. And that's why I would like to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more Microsoft Fabric data engineering content. It doesn't cost you anything and I would highly appreciate that. But now let's do that more complex example. Here I have a code that will create a more complex data frame that we had in the first example. We also have this ID column here, then we have a name column, and then we have this nested values column. In that column we have an array, and in that array we have more arrays. So basically we are nesting arrays on top of arrays. And then we're also creating a view out of this data so we can query that using Spark SQL cell. Let's first run this code here, and it has now executed, and then we can show that data frame using a select statement in our Spark SQL cell. And here we have the data, and we can see that now we have these nested arrays, that we have arrays inside arrays. Let's try to do an explode function for this data frame here, and let's see what happens. So basically now we run the explode function to these nested values. And we can see that now our rows have multiplied, but we still have arrays in our data. So we are not entirely flattened out that data frame. And now we have only peeled off one layer of arrays, and now we still have a one layer left. And here I have the query that would actually peel off both of these arrays. So we are using this first query that we had there as a subquery for this. So we are getting this result first, and then we are running another explode function to these values that we are getting out from that first query. Let's run this and let's see what happens. And now we can see that we have even more rows, since now we are flattening out this array as well. But as you can see, now we are having a lot of duplicate data here. We are repeating the ID and name John 4 times here, and the name Jane 3 times, and name Mike 3 times as well. So we managed to flatten this data frame, but now we are getting that duplicate data again here. And now you could be wondering why to do this flattening process, since we can use arrays in our data frame. My simple answer to that question would be that some systems, like very traditional databases, do not support arrays. For example, if we would be delivering this data to some traditional database that doesn't support arrays, then we would need to do something to those arrays before we would be able to send that data to that database. But we will come back to this later in this series. And so far in this demo, we have only used Spark SQL to demonstrate the capabilities of explode function. But now I will show you how you can do the first example by using PySpark. And here I have some PySpark code that will actually do the same thing that we did in the first exercise in this video. So we are creating that simple data frame having that ID and values columns, and then we're displaying that data frame. Then we are using this explode function to explode that values array into value column, and then we are displaying the end result of this operation here. Let's run this and let's see what happens. This should finish really fast, and there we can see that first data frame, and in this second data frame we have that same result that we had in that first tutorial that we did. Now you should have an understanding how to use explode function in Microsoft Fabric notebooks to flatten arrays. If you'd like to learn more about Fabric, check out this video next. Now I thank you for watching and see you in that video.